بسم الله وبه بنينا ولا عبد غير وشقينا وحبذ رب حبردينا اللهم صل على محمد كلمة ذكر ذاكرون وصل على محمد كلمة قفل ذكر ذاكرون. Obviously understand that to squeeze the noble biography of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in 29 days, we can never fulfill the right. We are skipping 3 years now after the Battle of Uhud. We never yet, and the kuffar now decided enough is enough. This separate efforts is not going to do anything. So they formed an alliance of all the kuffar to destroy Islam, to destroy Madinah. Motivated probably by the Banū Naḍīr, we mentioned them as the Jewish tribe which had caused fitna in Madinah and been expelled. But now they use the mercy shown by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in an ungrateful manner, and they were key in forming an alliance. They gathered the Ghaṭfān tribe, a massive tribe, and the Ghaṭfān tribe produced 6,000 warriors. The Quraysh came with 4,000. So Medina was now going to be surrounded by the 10,000 Arabs, and then inside Medina there was still the Banū Qurayzhah, the Jewish tribe, who was supposed to be on the side of the Muslims by treaty, but then they betrayed the Muslims. So outside was the largest army Arabia had ever seen at that point, the 10,000 Arabs, and inside Medina there was the Jews betraying the Muslims. As the armies were coming and with this impossible odds, the question was how were the Muslims going to defend Medina. And Salmān the Persian, or Farsi, radiallahu anhu, who had mentioned him, it was he who came up with a suggestion that because Medina was surrounded on 3 sides by the lava fields, the old lava fields, so the soil is not very stable, so large armies couldn't really approach from there. And there's also the palm trees, the date plantations, that was thick, the armies can't come there. Only on the northern side was Medina exposed. And so Salmān came up with this position, with this suggestion that in Persia, in Iran, when we fight wars and we're facing especially cavalry in large numbers and we can't fight them directly, then we build these trenches, long ditches that we can make it more easy for us to defend. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted this suggestion of Salmān radiallahu anhu, and we can also say that from his suggestion Islam was saved at that moment. Obviously the armies haven't yet reached, and some time is taken that the Sahaba are digging the trenches. Different people are allocated, different sections. You dig from here to there. At one point there was such a large rock which couldn't be broken. Some thought that let's dig around it, but they said no. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us from here to there, we are not going to disobey Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course they couldn't, so then they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam what to do. They could not smash it, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with his spiritual power, when he struck the rock, it started breaking apart. And each time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam struck it, Allah showed him certain things. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah has shown that this ummah will be conquering Yemen, Syria, Iran. And this was at a time when the whole world was basically gathering to destroy Islam, and its odds are so heavy, and only people with Iman. And there was again for the hypocrites who were in Medina a big joke. It was an intense cold winter, and there was no food really in Medina. They were starving. You might have heard where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba tied rocks to keep his bellies in out of the intense hunger. Not the few hours that we go through, there was no food. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed 2 rocks tied to his belly. So much intense hunger were they undergoing. Such were their lack of material possessions. And here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying the world will be conquered basically. The superpowers, the major countries will be conquered by Islam. A big joke for the hypocrites and a test for the believers, but the believers believe every word Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam uttered. At that time, young Anṣāri, radiallahu anhu, Jabir bin Abdullah, he quietly comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says that we have a little bit barley and a little bit mutton. You and a few of your men come. He whispers to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam calls out loud, Jabir has invited all of us. Come and eat. And Jabir is in a panic. There's only so much food, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam invited the whole army. And he tells his wife, and they come. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes out the meat of the pot, and he takes out the bread, the barley bread from the oven. He feeds, he feeds, he feeds. From a little bit was only meant for a few people. The entire army had been fed through the blessed hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I will always point out, that when you read the hadith, chapters on miracles in hadith, this name keeps up popping up. Jabir bin Abdullah al-Anṣāri radiallahu anhu. And you know what, I think we should also learn some kind of respect. I find it very, very disrespectful of this ummah that you know who's your Manchester goalie and who scored a goal in Liverpool, but it comes to Sahabi. A certain Sahabi had the mow and he ground it, and the wheat came and the flour came, and then he looked in and then the flour stopped coming. He had a name, just like your superstars and your sports stars have names. The Sahabi also had a name, Jabir bin Abdullah al-Anṣāri radiallahu anhu. And if you look at the hadith, at the first incident of this miraculous interaction, how his life became so filled with miracles, they were returning from a journey. Jabir is a young man, about 16 or so, riding at the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, Jabir, isn't it time for you to get married? And Jabir said, I have married Ya Rasulullah. And from that already we see how opposite the lifestyle of the Sahaba. That today would be like, oh, he got married, he didn't have a big thingies with it, he was no. But Sahaba was so simple, even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't have Jabir got married. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, would you get married to a young virgin, appropriate to your age? Or, no, Rasulullah, I got married to this elderly lady who was married before. Jabir, you young man? He says, Ya Rasulullah, my father has been martyred. He left with much debts that he still has to be paid. And I've got so many sisters. If I had to marry a girl of my age and she's just going to sit and play with my sisters, who is there that's going to look after my sisters? So imagine at that age, a teenage boy whose passions is at its peak, and he's not thinking in that line, he's thinking in terms of his responsibility to his sisters. He gives up and he marries an elderly lady. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is so impressed with this young man. What do Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam make? Because that worthy is not mentioned, at least in what I read. But I believe that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made dua there, and I believe that his life of barakah, of blessings, is from that incident and that dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they come to Madinah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, what do you have to pay your father's creditors? And he says, it's just a little bit this pile of dates that we have at home, and this doesn't equal in value to what my father owed. Rasulullah said, never mind, bring it. Brought it, the pile of dates, and call all the creditors. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sits on the pile of dates, and there's right creditor, right, how much did your father owe? Take this amount of dates. equal in value to that debt. Right. How much do you owe? How much did he owe you? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that keeps on giving debts, and at the end, all the debts are paid, which was more than what the pound was worth to start off with, and the pound was, as without anything having decreased. The miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and just again would be one out of many, many miracles in the life of Jabir radiallahu anhu. Tactics is permitted in Islam. When we make an agreement with anybody, we can never break it, whether it's a business agreement, a political agreement. In times of war, if we're given our word as Muslims, the word cannot be broken. But tactics is allowed in Islam. So, Nu'ayman bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, son of the Ghaṭfān, he had the trust of the Jews and the trust of the Quraysh. They didn't know he became Muslim, so he goes to the Jews. You know, the siege is dragging on so long, nothing is coming your way. I think the Quraysh are going to abandon you. To keep them here, why don't you say that you demand the leaders as a hostage? And then he goes to the Quraysh. You know what? I've been having talks with the Jews, and they are regretting that they sided with you, because when you are gone, they're going to be staying here at Madinah with the Muslims, so they're going to look for a way to get back on the Muslim side. So if they're going to come, I think they're going to ask for hostages, and they're going to hand the hostages over to the Muslims to get back on the Muslim side. And obviously, I wouldn't trust these Jews if I were you. So now both got suspicious, and then the next meeting they said, now look here, we need to know, they have a full-scale attack. The Quraysh were demanding now, we need a full-scale attack on your side. You're just sitting there in Medina, you're not doing anything to help us. So they said, okay, we need to attack, why don't you give us hostages? Oh, why do you want hostages? We don't trust you anymore. And so their ranks broke apart through the intervention of one single Sahabi. And at that moment also, Allah sent hurricanes which completely scattered them, and they said enough, and they broke the siege, and Islam was saved. Subhanallah, bihamdihi.